So today Bungie released a dev update titled Rewards. So it's from Joe Blackburn, the assistant game director on Destiny 2. He's from the Raid team and he worked on Season of Opulence. So there's some ideas maybe towards how his design philosophies work. Apparently Luke Smith put him in charge of some things because it says right here, I'm back thanks to a revive from Luke and team as we work together to create a Destiny 2 future that we're all excited about. So then on this next paragraph, he starts talking about the infusion cap and what the point of that is. Introducing infusion caps is part of addressing this, a way to make sure that the overall numbers of rewards Guardians need to care about in order to be competitive in Destiny isn't prohibitive. It's also a way to continue evolving each season's meta, while at the same time making sure players still have a ton of options when choosing what they want to bring into the next challenge. Our goal from the beginning with Infusion Caps is to improve and keep Destiny 2 fresh over time. What we're most looking forward to is how this system will introduce innovation to the season over season meta, how creative builds from the community will shine, and how we can continue to deliver more unique, handcrafted gear that aligns with the world narrative and where the universe is going. Let's go back and look at one of those lines, specifically this line. What we're most looking forward to is how this system will introduce innovation to the season over season meta, how creative builds from the community will shine, and how we can continue to deliver more unique, handcrafted gear that aligns with the world narrative and where the universe is going. First off, if you're sunsetting armor, that's taking away builds. Because, no one's going to put the time and effort to get high stats if they're just going to go away. Like, it takes so long to get good statted armor. If we had better systems to get good statted armor, for example, if we went into the raid and we had like a menagerie style chalice where we could like put runes that we have to put in to skew the distribution of our armor so we can get the stats we want. Like, for example, as when I play Warlock, I don't care about mobility at all. Like, I would sacrifice all my mobility to put into discipline, intellect, or recovery, because I like to do discipline, intellect as my primary stuff. I'm typically good at like a 50 recovery, which naturally just happens. Okay, and the season over season meta, their current implementation of sunsetting doesn't even do this. It only does this in Iron Banner or Trials, which, I mean, I guess that's the only thing they care about, is what they're saying. Also, another point, in PvE, it doesn't hurt me if someone is using a weapon. Like, it doesn't hurt my gameplay experience if someone is restricting their loadout to use Mountaintop. It doesn't hurt me in any way. Now, you can get to the question of, like, what is going to be top damage and stuff like that. Like, Mountaintop did a extreme amount of damage for the archetype it was. If you compare it to another, the similar archetype Truth Teller, you can get spike nades and auto-loading or field prep, and there's no other damage perk on there, so that it implies that micro missile actually was a damage buff. Even when you're getting a body shot with Truth Teller, it's nowhere near the damage that Mountaintop is. But the main point of that is, like, someone using a different weapon in PvE does not actually hurt someone else's experience in PvE. You can use whatever you want, practically. Like, when people are talking about raid damage phases and people are like, oh, what are we using? It doesn't matter what we are using. Unless you're using something like Outbreak or Rat King, something that is literally designed to work together. Which, there's not many of the things in the game like that. Like, the Aeon Soul, Swift, and Safe exotics, Rat King, and Outbreak. Now, Outbreak can sometimes be pretty meta, but recently hasn't been that good in raids. But, like, someone using a Mountaintop doesn't hurt me. I think what most people refer to with, like, the meta in PvE is, like, this weapon X is the best DPS, and it's getting boring that they're not changing that. But it's like, well, yes, no, maybe so. Like, they are changing stuff like that. Like, Cloud Strike was a good way. Like, the new raid, like, it's more about design rather than the weapons. It's the fact that previously all the raid bosses in Destiny have, like, been the same design. You want me to use a sword? You make a boss that lets me use a sword on him. You want me to use slug shotguns? Do what they did for Deepstone Crypt. Like, design dictates what we use more so than what the actual, like, raw DPS is. So he basically provided a TLDR before he gets into the deep dive. there's 3 points, and these are what they are. With each season in Year 4, Destiny 2 will grow the overall power ecosystem for weapons. With very few exceptions, all weapons you can take to the power cap should still be earnable in-game. Future annual releases will contain more new weapons to collect than Beyond Light or Shadowkeep. So in the first one, they're basically telling us that they're going to engage with power creep. Like, that's how I read that. With each season in Year 4, Destiny 2 will grow the overall power ecosystem for weapons. I don't know how else you would take that. Isn't that the whole point of sunsetting, to avoid power creep? Like, they're literally telling us that that's what they're doing. This is kind of confusing. So, what's going to happen at the end of Year 4? Everyone's going to be complaining because at the end of Year 4, we're going to be at the most peak of power creep. And then New Year comes around, it's like, oh, now we're down to nothing. I mean, I guess that's kind of how they're designing it, like, story-wise. Like, Savathun could come in and, like, destroy the city or something. So, I mean, I guess they could work that in narratively, but I don't think people would be a big fan of that. Okay, the second point. With very few exceptions, all weapons you can take to the power cap should still be earnable in-game. So, they're saying very few exceptions. I mean, this mostly sounds good. This would imply that something like Forsaken and Shadowkeep, if it were this year, would still be non-sunset items. Personally, I just think that the premise should be, if you're paying for the content, it cannot be sunset, or it should not be sunset. Like, the fact that they're still selling Shadowkeep and Forsaken, none of that stuff should be sunset. Either make it free to play, like they say the game is, which it really isn't, and make that stuff sunset, or keep it paid, which makes it not free to play, and let it not be sunset. Okay, on to the third point. Future annual releases will contain more new weapons to collect than Beyond Light or Shadowkeep. So to me, this is basically them just punting it off until the next year. Like, this is a non-point. This is something that they're saying, like, we'll do this in a year, trust us. But, like, this is exactly what they said about sunsetting. And they keep pushing the sunsetting. The sunsetting is not to change the meta. Sunsetting is to artificially extend the grind. Nowhere in here did they say that you would be able to infuse your old weapons. Say like the Gnawing Hunger, for example. When they reintroduce Gnawing Hunger with a new power cap, there's no mention of that in this entire article, that you would be able to infuse your old weapons if they reintroduce them. Like, why isn't that a key point on here? Because they want sunsetting to be able to artificially extend the grind. So the next paragraph is called Growing the Power Ecosystem, and this is basically talking about how they're going to add unique weapons into the game. For example, these are the 2 points they give. In Season 13, we're adding 6 new legendary weapons to our ritual activities, 2 each for Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible. The next point, in addition to the weapons above, Nightfall Strikes are getting 3 unique weapons, the Palindrome, the Swarm, the Shadow Price, all making their Destiny 2 debuts. If you're brave enough to take on Grandmaster Nightfalls, you will also be able to earn adept versions of these weapons. So the first point, in Season 13 we're adding 6 new legendary weapons to our ritual activities, 2 each for Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible. Good point. Like, that's good. That's something that they should be doing. It's not near as good as a vendor refresh, but I guess this is more of like, is one going to be like a super casual one to get and one like a really hard one to get? I would really like that, actually. It would be a really cool system where it's like, okay, I'm not that good at Crucible, but I want to do Grandmasters, so I'll be able to get both the Strike ones very easily, and I'll be able to get one of the Crucible ones easily. If I wanted that really hard Crucible one, I'll have to put more effort into it. And maybe something that they could do here is, once the season is over, all these items get added to the kiosk, where you have to put this insane material grind to purchase them. Or maybe they'll just stay around for the whole year. Like, that would make more sense. Like, if they design these every season to be difficult enough to take a year to do, like, you could do them faster, for example. Like maybe here's a good example of how this could work with Crucible. So the basic one, the very casual approach one, would be something like, just play X number of games, get so many kills, get some precision kills, And it's just quantity that makes it last the entire season or up to a year. And I'm saying up to a year with the idea that you would be working towards the other ones. Like, if you're not spending 24/7 in these activities to get this item, then you would be able to get it up to a year. And then maybe the hardcore version of Crucible 1 could be like, win 50 games in trials, or go flawless 4 times or something like that. Get 75 Iron Banner wins, something tied towards the quote-unquote hardcore part of Crucible. And they could do the same thing with Strikes and Gambit. I don't know what they would do for Gambit, but Strikes, it could be like, do just Strike playlists, get so many kills, get Arc Solar Void kills, and then like for the hardcore Strike one, it'd be like, complete the Grandmaster Nightfall, or the Master, something like that, X number of times, get so many more elemental kills, do it with a clanmate, or something like that. Like, these are just examples. So the second point. In addition to the weapons above, Nightfall Strikes are getting 3 unique weapons with the Palindrome, the Swarm, the Shadow Price, all making their Destiny 2 debuts. If you're brave enough to take on Grandmaster Nightfalls, you will also be able to earn adept versions of these weapons. So, the point I want to make here is they say you will be able to earn a adept version of these weapons. I'm kind of concerned that this doesn't mean you will earn an adept version of these weapons. Because what this sentence applies is that you have to do the Grandmaster in order to get the adept versions of these weapons. Because it says, if you were brave enough to take on Grandmasters. So that's the requirement right there. Complete a Grandmaster. You will be able to earn adept versions of these weapons. You will be able to. That's where I'm concerned. It's not a guaranteed drop. Similar to how Trials is a guaranteed drop, if that's the weapon for the Flawless that week. So, that's my sort of suspicion right there, is that it's not going to be a guaranteed drop. The next paragraph is called Keeping Current. It's basically talking about how items in the World Loot Pool, if they're almost sunset, they're going to be available at Banshee going forward. And items that have almost 3 months to be sunset, those aren't going to be in that loot pool anymore because they don't want to clog up the rewards. They want you to be able to get more relevant items that you can keep for longer. The next paragraph is called Quality and Quantity. They're basically just talking about how different weapons have changed the playstyles of people over the time of Destiny, and how they're hiring new people to go into the rewards team. Nothing more to say there. I mean, that's good. These are things that are not going to take place instantly, because the way technology companies work is you first have to train the people on your technology. For example, Destiny's engine, they have to train these people on the engine. So don't expect anything soon. So don't get like crazy hype like, oh, it's been 2 weeks. Where are all those new hires? Why aren't they doing anything? Where's my new weapon? It's gonna take some time. Like, this is weird that they put it in here. I mean, it's nice that they tell us. Like, it's very transparent, but do take it with a grain of salt. It'll come out in maybe like a year. Like, we'll see the benefit of it. And here's the last paragraph. It's preheating the oven. This is basically a closer where they talk about their expectations for the future and armor specifically. They're saying that they have plans, but they're not really going to tell us much more than that. But they leave out with a few notes. So, first off, a big one. Transmog will be coming with Season 14. More details to come. See work in progress screen captures below. Not final, may change. So, what you can see from these screenshots is, thankfully, the ornament is not going to be tied to our actual gear. I'm very happy that they did this. This is very intelligent design. Because if it was tied to our gear, we would be transmogging every time we got a new piece of gear. With this system, it's kind of like the Anthem system where cosmetic and combat are separate. So with this system, you can go in here into a sub-menu somewhere and select what you're going to look like, select your shaders, and select your ornaments. Now, one thing that is weird about the second screenshot is they're still using the whole having amount of shaders. If I were to give feedback on the system, since we can see it right here, and they're giving us a screenshot, is this should just be a menu that links to all collected shaders. Like, I don't know if that's feasible within their game. Like, maybe there's something that's preventing them from doing that. Like, maybe they've set it up to where you have to go purchase a shader from your collections to then be able to use it. Also, I kind of get the idea that, like, if they were to do that, you know, it's going to kind of hurt Bright Dust, like the Bright Engram spoofing items, like the non-useful items, like, ooh, you got a shader that I already have. Stuff like that. So a few other notes that they're providing us right here. DDoS protection for Destiny 2 players on all consoles will be coming in Season 13, so that's good. And that'll lead up to something later. That's very big. Volta Glass returns later this year. 2 Strikes, Fallen Saber, and Devil's Lair are coming to Destiny 2 in Season 13. These are Destiny 1 reprised strikes, so I would like to see more. Now, if this is going to be a reoccurring thing, like 2 strikes every season, I'd be happy with that, but where's our Crucible and Gambit maps, you know? It's only fair to bring those. I feel like what they're going to do is rotate it, like 2 strikes this season, 2 Crucible, or 2 Gambit, or whatever, and keep rotating. I don't think that's the best approach. I think they should do. I would prefer, like, few, but wide and varied additions to the game. So, like, 1 Crucible, 1 Gambit, and 1 Strike. I would prefer over, like, 3 Strikes, 3 Gambit, 3 Crucible. I would prefer a more distributed approach. Legendary and Master Lost Sector rotation will be expanded to include the Lost Sectors on the Moon in Season 13, and there will be new 3 pieces of exotic armor to chase. So the new armor, that's cool. I'm wondering if that's free to play. I'm not a big fan of the way they do free to play in this game. I could get to that in a separate video if you would like. And then the big one, Crossplay is coming in 2021. That is insane. What that's going to do is basically triple the amount of people you can play with. That's really cool. That'll open up clans, that'll open up LFGs, that'll open up, like, social media stuff. Like, there's not going to be any more, like, oh man, I had this terrible experience on a raid. It's like, oh man, I would love to help you, but, you know, I play on PC. It's like, you'll be able to do that now. This is basically the cross-save at its ideal level. Crossplay, like, you could literally boot up on PC and play with your Xbox friends or your PlayStation friends. Now, this is going to raise some questions from the community about, like, hackers and stuff in PC. Like, that's a good question. That's a fair argument. I wonder what they're going to do to do that. Like, how they're going to stop that. I mean, their anti-cheat, I don't know if they even have an anti-cheat. I think their anti-cheat is them literally just banning people. Like, I don't think there is a system. Now, I'm not asking for some invasive anti-cheat. I know they talked about having to link up your phone if you're, like, a free-to-play player, something like that. I'm down for that. I think that's a good system. That's a proactive choice. But this is going to raise some concerns in the community. That's going to be a big hotbed topic in the future, is that crossplay is coming. I feel like a bunch of console players are going to be like, no, we don't want to play with PC players. You know, they have hackers. Now, let me be fair. Majority of the time, you are not going to see hackers. You're only going to see hackers in that top 10%. Like, I get it. You know, I'm not saying that's you're unimportant, but I'm saying, like, majority of the time for most players, it's not going to be a concern. And I have this fear that all these console players have this idea that, like, if you go into PC PvP, it's like the Wasteland or Wild West or something. Like, it's not like that, you know. Stasis is more of a problem than hackers, to be honest. Like, the amount of glitches that happen with stasis in PvP is absolutely absurd. And hackers are typically obvious, and you can easily report them and get them banned if you go through the Bungie methods. Thanks for watching and listening. I'd like to hear y'all's takes on what y'all think about this blog post. Some pretty interesting stuff in there. Like my other video I was saying, I'm trying to get up to 100 subscribers. I'm almost there. I would really appreciate your subscribe if you like this content. I try to go a little more in depth than other people. I try to think about things on the sort of design level and give pretty good feedback, in my opinion, because you have to consider many viewpoints when they're developing a game like Destiny. Like, there's a lot of different players. I think that's kind of important to understand that. Do all the YouTube stuff. Y'all know what to do. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.